And the last, well, I wouldn't say the last. Another reason why I like the evening shift is that I have the day to myself, so I can do chores, exercise, errands, all those things. I can do those before I go to work. The last reason is because it keeps me out of trouble. In the evenings, that's where all the trouble starts. It starts in the evenings. Now I know in Jamaica usually it starts a lot later than that, but I live in Canada, so for me that's definitely it keeps me out of trouble because that's when the friends call me and they yo could touch the road, I could go to a party, you see me?
Yeah, yeah, real man. So welcome to the live again. Like you know what kind of job you do and how you work out all of them things there. But the people them know what kind of job you do and all of that.
So I'm a pharmacist, a clinical pharmacist, and I work in the emergency department at the South Health campus in Calgary, Alberta.
No, okay. Yeah, yeah. So and you say you prefer the evening shift. So how you
Evening
cope?
shift.
What the effects are your night shift? Are the
um,
disadvantage of your night shift?
the
When I
bit
do night.
my disadvantage is that come 4 o'clock in the morning. I tell you, my brain start kind of luck off. I can start feeling that I don't move as I don't think as well as I would like. I don't think as fast as I would like. And that's so that tends to I don't like that feeling. I don't want to I don't want to be fuzzy or confused or anything like that. And then the other thing is just that I can't really focus at that time of morning. Usually I'm good up until about 3 o'clock, and then once 4 o'clock hits, it's like that's when the wall. I literally hit a wall.
Well, I would say I prefer the evening shift as well. And at my workplace is 4 p.m. till 12 midnight. I prefer that shift as well.
I, I prefer that as well.
Yeah, man. So now the emergency room now are with your pharmaceutical thing. You ever see anybody come with any problems associated with working nights?
All the time. Now it's very rarely an emergency, but the people that we do see, they tend to come in because they haven't slept for 2, 3, 4 days, and that is a problem, and that's why we try and help these people out, and so but the a lot of the times it's not necessarily associated with shift work. Sometimes it's associated with grief, stress, but at the same time, we do get people on occasion that come in basically because their whole sleep rhythm has been compromised as a result of their shift work.
So what you tell them or what kind of prescription you prescribe for them are for the night shift people them know who get less sleep.
So the first thing we look at is we look at their environment. Now, if you are doing the shift work, when you come home to sleep, the most important thing is to have your room, wherever you're sleeping, your bedroom. You want it as dark and as quiet as possible. Now, I know that can be difficult, especially given where you live. If you live in a big city, there it could, people get up, they start moving, and you hear all the traffic and noise outside. But at the same time, you want to try and get your room as dark as possible and as comfortable as possible. So if you have a fan or AC or anything like that, you want to make sure that that's running, so you don't that your room doesn't get too hot that's going to wake up. Lastly, you want to put a do not disturb sign on your door. Make sure nobody comes knocking. You make sure you don't have your children running around making no bag of noise or nothing. So that's what we start out with. We start out with the non pharmacological methods or interventions that we can look at. The other thing is that we tell people to avoid certain things, especially things like caffeine, especially right before the end of your shift, for example. There's nothing wrong with caffeine, but if you drink a coffee, just like in for example in my situation at 4 o'clock in the morning when I hit that wall, I want to drink coffee. But the problem is that if I drink any sort of caffeine at that time, I'm going to have difficulties getting asleep and getting some rest. Also, you want to avoid things like screens, so TV, phones, computers, tablets, all that stuff, especially right before you go to bed. If anything, especially if you're having any issues falling asleep or anything like that, reading is one thing that we strongly encourage. That being said, oftentimes, people they try all these things, or they can't get their environment ideal, or they have to consume stimulants, for example, to keep them going through the rest of their shift. At this point in time, we do recommend certain pharmacological methods. Now, um, as far as drugs are concerned, there's a lot of drugs out there that you can use for sleep. The more common ones that you're going to find over the counter without prescription, I'll start with DPH, or diphenhydramine. It's an antihistamine. You find it in all sorts of nighttime sleep aids. Unisom, NyQuil are some examples of some brand names. And as I mentioned before, DPH, I know in Jamaica, is kind of the common name for that type of drug. And those type of medications, those medications are, more importantly, they're good for helping you go to sleep. They're not going to keep you to sleep for a couple of reasons. Basically, how it works. And secondly, it doesn't work for very long. So it's not going to necessarily give you that long sleep that will put you into, deep REM sleep that will result in you feeling rested for the night. But if you need something that will help you go to sleep, DPH is something that you can try, or you can take. The usual dose is about 50 milligrams. Some people need higher doses, some people need less. I can't tell you which dose to start at, but I mean, sorry, I would recommend starting at a lower dose to start, okay? But what dose works for certain people is I can't tell you that. Everybody's different. The only other thing to keep in mind about this particular medication is that some people, and it's very rare, but some people, they have the opposite effect, and it makes them more alert and anxious. So
Yeah. Hear
so
about
it's
that one.
yeah, so it's important to keep that in mind. And if and that's one thing you could do, is that you can try a very small dose. And if you find that that's the case, then that's why I always recommend starting at a lower dose. And then if you tolerate it, then you can increase the dose appropriately. The other over-the-counter medication, well, it's not so much a medication, but it is a
Hold on.
yep.
Welcome to the live, Linda. Hi, Jandel. What's going on here? Yeah, we are talking about the effects and the disadvantages of being a night shift worker, and how we can overcome some of those issues. All right, Chandel, welcome again. Welcome to everybody to the live. We have Lafels Jida, straight out of Canada, on the live. He's a pharmaceutical technician from out of Canada. Yeah, but go on again.
So the other thing I wanted to mention that's over the counter is something called melatonin. Now, melatonin is a substance that your brain actually secretes prior to sleep. When you are getting ready for sleep, when the sun goes down, and it's about a couple hours before you usually go to bed, your body secretes a fair amount of melatonin. And this is the neurotransmitter that kind of prepares your body for sleep, prepares your brain specifically. with
Okay.
mel with melatonin. Now, melatonin is also good for helping you get to sleep. Now, some people swear that it keeps them asleep, but how it works in the brain is mainly to get you to sleep, much like the DPH. The thing about melatonin, though, is that it's not like DPH in that you're going to feel the effects within about 30 minutes to 30 to 30, well, about 30 minutes. If you are having difficulty sleeping and you want to try it, you want to take it a couple hours before you plan to go to bed. The dose of melatonin is different for everybody, much like DPH. I find most people need about 10 milligrams if they're going to use it as a sleep aid. But some people, especially, if you're smaller, younger, older, 3 to 5 milligrams can work for those people too as well. But that's why much like the DPH, it's a matter of finding what dose works for you.
Those are things you recommend for people having sleeping problem. Those are the medication issued to persons having sleeping problem after working the night.
Those two medications are the two over-the-counter medications that you can pick up without a prescription that I recommend if you have difficulties falling asleep after a night shift. Furthermore, you can use those medications if you are trying to get back onto a good sleep schedule. You can use those medications to help you get back on a good sleep schedule after a night shift as well.
So, those have any side effects?
Yep. So the melatonin, as I mentioned before, some people they don't they have the opposite effect. It doesn't make them drowsy at all. It makes them more excited. However, the other side effects of DPH is that it can cause dry mouth. It can also cause constipation, and it can also it could also some people as I said before, it throws them off. It doesn't make them feel good at all. If you take a really whopping dose, you can actually hallucinate off the stuff. And so that's why it's important to take within the recommended daily as prescribed, or as it is recommended on the bottle. With the melatonin, the biggest side effect, it usually tends to be a lot better tolerated than the DPH. But with the melatonin now, that medication, some people they feel groggy in the morning, and basically they feel not that they don't feel rested, but they don't feel very active, and they can feel very somnolent in the morning. But that it tends to be better tolerated than the DPH as far as side effects are concerned. So those are the over-the-counter medications. Now there's a whole schwackload of prescription medications that you can use. The most common medications at this point in time are the Z's: zopiclone, zolpidem, and S-zopiclone. And that's Imavane, Ambien, and Lunesta. These medications are prescription. So you have to go and talk to your physician about it. Now, if you're having issues with sleep, these medications, they work like a charm. They really do. But you also have to keep in mind, sleep is a habit. And if you take these medications, especially longer than about like a week or 2 weeks or so, those medications they can be habit forming. You can develop dependence on it, and I've seen it. The thing about dependence is that dependence usually results in one dose. It may have worked for a certain period of time, but then you have to subsequently increase the dose to get the desired effect. So just kind of keep in mind that if you use these medications for a few days, no problem. A week, no problem. But if you find that you're using it all the time, then that's when you have to just keep that in mind, is all I'm saying. There's a difference between dependence and addiction, because these medications, they don't necessarily make you feel better. And that's kind of one of the hallmarks of addiction, is that, it makes you feel better, or at least makes you forget or whatever. But these particular medications, they can you can develop dependence on that. You have to be aware of that. Secondly, these medications, as far as side effects are concerned, they tend to give you a metallic taste, and if the dose is too high, much like the melatonin, you can feel very groggy and slow in the morning too as well. So much like the other medications, and this is going to be a recurring topic that I'm going to bring up, that you want to try and use the lowest dose for as short as possible. But that being said, they work. I'm not gonna lie. I've tried it before, and it's like time travel. I'll tell you right now. You're out like a light, and then you wake up, and it's like nothing. You know what I mean? You don't know what's going on, but at the same time, it will give you a decent sleep. You will feel rested, and that's the most important thing. Now, um, the only other caveat though is just that if you start taking this stuff for too long, your body doesn't get the regular sleep that it should, and so it can get to the point where you're not feeling rested at all despite taking this medication. So that's just one thing to keep in mind.
So basically, you say it's a natural sleep.
Yeah, yeah.
For me, working nights, I have problem sleeping in the
Hmm.
days.
Yeah.
Like most of the co-workers and most people, they have problem sleeping in the days. So
Yeah, and see, and that's the thing about these medications too, is that if you're trying to get back on a regular rhythm and stuff like that, they're very good for that. Especially if you're having issues going to bed and at night and trying to get back on a regular day or night sleep schedule. So, but just kind of keep in mind, like I said, it's you don't want to make it a habit. Now, there's other medications too that are called benzodiazepines, which are things like lorazepam or Ativan, diazepam or Valium, or Xanax or alprazolam, and there's a bunch of other medications too. Now, these medications they're not like the Ambien or the Imivane in that they'll get you to sleep, but they're not going to make you sleep well. Okay, and so, and much like the other medications too, that these medications can actually be habit forming. Now, I know people who have been straight up addicted on these medications because some people because it calms you down. It can actually they do have an addiction potential. But any medication, if you use it appropriately, and if you use it for the right reasons, then they can actually be very safe and a lot of help. With those particular medications, especially something like Ativan, you can actually get a sublingual tablet that you dissolve under your tongue, and it works very fast. It works a lot faster than Imivane or Ambien. But as I said before, the sleep that you're going to get off of that is not going to be as good as with the first medications that I mentioned.
so for persons now working the night shift, what would you recommend they do are different from the medication? What should they do? Or what type of vitamin or something else different from the medicine?
So as I mentioned before, the biggest thing is to make sure you have like a healthy diet. Don't eat a lot of food before, especially before you go to bed. Okay, that basically kicks your body into high gear. I know that in Jamaica we have this thing called ethnic somnolence, especially after you yam whole heap of food. But sometimes, especially on night shifts, if you do that, it's going to do the opposite. The other thing is exercise. Good exercise. You're if you exercise, you're getting rid of all those stimulant neurotransmitters because you're using that to exercise. And so, regular exercise, at least like half an hour to an hour. But of regular exercise, and we're not talking about going for a walk. Walk is not. It's a type of exercise, but it's not the best exercise. I'm talking about doing something that where you have to exert yourself and get your heart rate up, and you want to do at least 150 minutes a week of exercise. But once, much like the food, you don't want to exercise right before you go to bed because you're going to have that circulating adrenaline, and that's going to keep you up. So if in the middle of your night shift, what I recommend is that, especially on your break or anything like that, if you have the opportunity to, just go for a little run or something like that, and that should help too as well.
Well, for most people, especially in Jamaica, they don't have the option or get break,
Fair
and who
enough.
get break,
Fair
they
enough.
can't get to exercise. For
Hmm.
me, I like walking, or my job take me walking, so do that in between as well.
Hmm. Yep. And then there's a new class of medications too. They're called the orexin antagonists, and so you have Belsomra, which is Surexant, and Lamberexant, which is called Dayvigo. And these type of medications are more close. These are more closely related to your actual sleep cycle. Now, these medications, if the other medications don't work, these are the medications that I would recommend as far as sleep. is concerned. They definitely don't have the side effect profile that you see with Imovane or Ambien, and with Ativan as well. You don't get the dependence profile. But just like anything that'll put you to sleep, they can make you drowsy when you wake up in the morning. So it's important to find the right dose. Are you still there?
Yeah, man, still
Oh,
here.
all right, all right, all right. So that being said, the having a good sleep cycle is paramount to overcoming night shifts, especially when you want to get back onto day shifts or a regular like sleep cycle overnight. And part of that is just, as I said before, is just that sleep essentially it's a habit, and it's important to keep it's important to keep that habit as consistent as possible. And that, as I said before, the most important, like the non-pharmacological things that you can do is don't stay away from the television right before you're going to go to bed. At least an hour before you go to bed, no TV. And if anything, try and read something, and not on your phone. Try and read like a book, magazine, anything like that, and that should help. And as I said before, the other thing is just you got to keep your room nice and dark. Your body responds, and when I mean nice and dark, I mean your room has to be dark, not just something over your eyes or anything like that to keep the sun out, because your skin can, it knows that there's sun around. Okay, so that means the room has to be as dark as possible. I'm talking cave dark.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Maxwell, hi, blessings, Maxwell. Welcome. Yeah, man, welcome to everybody on the live. Talking with Lassell Gijas, pharmacist from out of Canada. And we are talking about disadvantages of working night shift and how we can overcome some of them. So, in your field and your work, what are your co-workers' favorite shift and how them cope with it?
At my work,
Yeah,
everybody prefers the day shift. Are you kidding me? Nobody
everybody
wants to
prefers
work.
day shift.
Yeah, nobody wants to work night shifts. We have some people at my job. They haven't worked a night shift in years because they just trade out of those shifts. We do have some people that work more night shifts, and mainly because night shifts when you're on a skeleton crew, and especially at a hospital, there's not a lot going on in a hospital overnight, and so the work tends to be easier. And that's one of the advantages that I find, at least with my job, when it comes to the night shift, is that the work isn't as busy. But that's not for everybody, and that's not the case for anybody at all, especially at your job, from what I know. But definitely, if everybody at my job had the option of Monday to Friday 9 to 5, I'll tell you right now, everybody would take that option. Me, I'm a little bit different, as I mentioned before. I prefer the evening shift, and that's mainly because I just find that I'm more productive that way.
Yeah, well, I have a few people at my workplace. I would say more people prefer the midnight shift, midnight to AM shift, midnight to 7, midnight to 8. Because as they get more time for themselves, but
Hmm.
everybody's different.
Everybody's
Me, as
different.
I said before, I don't like the night shift, the overnight shift, but I have to do it, pay the bills.
Right, exactly.
And what I get to understand is that most places of employment they pay extra to work night shift.
Same at my job too, as well.
Small.
Not much, but it's better than
Yeah.
nothing.
So what about you say your coworkers them prefer working the day shift? The
Hmm.
few that work the nights, do they like it or they don't have a
Um,
choice?
I wouldn't say they like it, but I wouldn't necessarily say they like it. I would say they don't mind it. Let's just put it that way. We have some casual employees that work at the hospital, and those are kind of the shifts that frequently come up that they can pick up. So they tend to pick up a lot of night shifts. But I know as a fact they don't necessarily like it, but they don't mind it, or else they wouldn't be picking up the night shift.
Well, everywhere going to have people prefer different shift, but it's the one that's more convenient and the one that's more relaxing.
Yes, for
I
sure.
mean, yeah, some people just work night shift because they want to do something in the day.
Exactly.
And then you have most of them, they having problems sleeping in the day, having some effects, some disadvantage of it as well. But they
Hmm.
still love it.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, there's a lot of research on it, and I am by no means an expert. So don't this whole any information that I'm giving you right here, make sure to follow up with your physician or your pharmacist about it. um, but but at the same time, there's a lot of research on shift work or night shifts, and the thing is that they're finding that night shifts they're not the best for your health. So just kind of keep that in mind. And I think part of it is because if you go, it's as I said before, the changing over from night shift or from a night, being awake in the night and sleeping in the day, and then you have to go back to sleep at night. And that change in itself, that puts a lot of stress on the body. I mean, essentially what you're doing is that you're jet lagged. Like if you went to travel to the UK or something like that, that shift change, it throws everybody off, and it can make you feel terrible. And that's essentially what you're doing when you're coming off of a night shift and you're going back to like a nighttime sleep schedule.
Yes, and as I said before, working in night shift, some people say they have more time for the family. I say, well, it's less time because they're either doing something or you're trying to sleep.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I don't see any advantage. But some people
Some people.
they choose the shift or I say what I want to say. But so back to you now with the evening shift. What are some of the effects of evening shift or what some of the advantages of the evening shift?
The advantages of the evening shift is that I have more time during the day to do the things I have to do around the house. As far as my life is concerned, I can get my errands done, I can get my chores done. I can make sure the food's all ready for dinner for when my family comes home in the evening. uh, I find that the work, at least for me, at my job, the work in the evening is more interesting. It's more fun. I don't like to sit around and do nothing at work. I want to help people. So people show up at the emergency department. The sick people, they always tend to show up in the evenings. I don't understand how that works. Don't don't quote me on it, but always seems to be the case.
So you get more time for yourself on the evening shift.
Exactly.
So what's the disadvantage of the evening shift, of your evening shift?
My social life takes a hit.
Huh?
My social life, it takes a hit. Like
So what you doing?
all my friends and stuff, they're working. Most of my friends, they work day shifts, right? So then, when if they want to go out, if they want me to pop over, like if they're having, and they're having a dinner and inviting people over, parties, anything like that. I'm going to show up at 11 o'clock after a or an evening shift, and I've missed everything, or ever the party's in full swing, and I don't want to catch up at that point. That's dangerous.
So on your break time now, or you work out things on with your break time
On the night shift.
on the evening shift.
On the evening shift, there's always two of us at work. So basically, I cover the other pharmacist break, and they cover my break.
So what you do during the break?
What I do during the break, I read. I read, and if I have other things, if I have emails to send out, especially with respect to work, I try and get caught up on my emails too as well. If I have any sort of, like things I can do online, as far as errands or anything like that. For example, if I need to, um, if I need to renew the registration on the car, or if I need to pay bills, But I usually try and read because I don't get a lot of time to myself these days. I got a 3-year-old at home and she takes up all of my time. So I usually try and catch up on some reading.
So, what will you suggest or recommend for persons working the night shift when they get their break?
Um, I would recommend, as I mentioned before, I think exercise, if you can do it, if it's in the cards, try and get some exercise in. If not, if you're very tired, even if you could take a little nap, that even 20 minutes, that'll help. The other thing is just that make sure to get to make sure to keep yourself uh make sure to keep yourself what is it, keep your energy up, and that means make sure to eat something if you can as well, and something nutritious, not no little snack or biscuit or none of those. And lastly, keep hydrated. Yeah,
Yeah,
drink
man,
lots
that's
of
the
water,
number one rule for me.
right?
Keep hydrated, the
Hmm.
water.
Hmm.
Because I know, well, for me, we work outside, so
Hmm.
always outside.
Yeah,
So get a break, we're going inside.
got
So we're
it.
always outside. So some people are always outside, some people in the building are always go outside.
Hmm.
Yeah, man. But I don't know. The night shift, I see so much. I have so many disadvantages with the night shift. So I don't know if it's about it to people who love it.
There's some people who do, and all the power to them, I tell you.
But this thing keep up